Okay, hello, this is Mr. McGee. I'm going to go through and try to offer feedback on these specific IAs here. So let's go ahead and do the first one. Does being near a wax warmer affect plant growth? Okay, this one is, I'd say, pretty well defined. Growth of the plant will define more later, but okay, I can go with that. Being near a wax warmer. I think I know what you're referring to here, but again, we'll see if it's elaborated on more or less down here. So in the background, before I go through the background, with a lab like this, I would expect to see something on what do you know about plant growth? What can you tell us about the way plants grow in general? What can you tell us about wax warmers? How do they work? What kind of heat do they put out? What kind of auras do they put out? What kind of wattage is used? So that could have to do with heat. All of these are going to tie together, obviously, so let's see if you have anything regarding that. Also, something about ethical considerations, safety, anything like that. What about personal considerations? So let's see what you have. Talking about personal stuff here, you use a wax warmer. I wondered if it would affect the growth rate of plants. Okay, so this here is very interesting. You say, I've always wondered if it would affect. I guess I'm wondering why. Maybe you have a legitimate reason, but it's almost like saying, as somebody who uses pink toenail polish, I always wondered if it would make cars go faster. I mean, and again, I'm just making this up, but again, why would you wonder that? Is there something you observed? Try to make a connection there for us, otherwise it's just kind of randomly out there. If you look up the room aesthetic, on any form, you're bound to come across a room with candles. Okay, the plants provide lovely. Okay, so here I can see why you're tying it together with that one. The plants provide a lovely aesthetic while cleaning the air. Candles provide a wonderful aroma. So the plants provide a lovely aesthetic. But again, about if it would affect the growth rate. I'm still curious about how that ties together, but okay, I guess I can see here something sort of forming, but I'm going to say you're probably going to want to dig deeper there. The research I have conducted, experiment paraffin wax on rose plants, tissues by the wax. Okay, so you started to do a little background research there on something else that may have had some consideration with wax penetration, but there's got to be a lot more depth to this. Like, what else do candles like these do? And again, what about the practical benefit of this? So a clear one you're talking about here is how these are typically in a room together, and maybe people that are using wax with plants in the room, it will cause their plants to grow more, and so this will kind of have a double benefit. Like, you've got to dig a lot deeper into this here. You've got to start, but definitely dig deeper in this background here and make sure you're using sources. All of this should tie together into our hypothesis. Plant growth will not be any less due to, there's kind of a double negative in there. Plant growth will not be any less due to the distance from a wax warmer than those not near a wax warmer at all. I would rephrase something like that, like, and I'm just making this up, but the farther plants get from a wax warmer, the less growth they will experience. Or the closer in proximity to a wax warmer, the more growth they will experience. And then here you're giving your explanation. Because according to candle fragrance, okay, soot particles clogging up the stomata, easy. I will say I'm not sure that, I didn't think candle wax gave out soot like that. But I guess if it's a candle that lights up, sure. This thing here should actually be in your background research. So really your background is telling us everything you've learned, and in your explanation here, you're just kind of pulling out little excerpts from it that you're going to talk about. So, all right. Next one here, independent variable. This one, distance plan is from the wax warmer in centimeters. Okay, and for this, we'll just put in parentheses cm. Because in here could be inches, and I know you spelled centimeters here, but again, our units is just cm. Increase distance by, and I'm not sure why you're going to increase it by such an abstract unit like this. I mean, that's a very, I guess I'm really curious. Also, why are you increasing it by a meter? Like, the units are in centimeters, so you're going to want to convert this to like 30.48 centimeters between plants. But again, why 30.8? And what is your control? All of what your table should have down here, I see you've got your increments. This is what you want to have there for your independent variable. those increments placed there, okay? And again, why are you spacing out? What is your background research that justified this kind of spacing out? So dig deeper with that, please. Okay, the growth of plant, and again, please put parentheses CM there. And when you say growth of plant, well, how are you measuring it? How wide the plant is, how tall it is from the seed, how tall it is from the surface of the soil. I assume you're not doing mass, but that could be growth of the plant as well. But these are things that were not touched upon. You definitely have to elaborate more on what do you mean growth of the plant? What if the plant branches off in multiple directions versus a plant that just like a blade of grass that just goes straight up? Well, I mean, one of them might got heavier even though it branched off, so you really got to think about how you're going to measure growth here, okay? Also, what kind of plants are you using? At this point, nowhere do I really see anything about what specific plant. Don't you think the plant species may have an effect by what type of candle is being used? So you've got to elaborate on this here. I like how you've got these constants underlined here with an explanation. Okay, so we're going to look through your procedure and see if you have all of these identified, but there's a good amount here. There probably is going to need to be even more, honestly, but let's see. For your material list, try to keep everything on one page, or at least don't start a one sentence like this and then put the rest here like on a page. Otherwise, I do like your setup, how you have it bolded at your titles, and then you have stuff written underneath. That looks very nice. Procedures and methods. Okay, I love that you've got a setup here with separate steps. This very nicely breaks everything up into separate steps here. I do like that. I will say though, it's interesting you have these all condensed, but these are spaced apart. If you keep similar formatting, it just looks nicer. Also, CM, make sure it's the lowercase cm there, just for unit consistency. Fill water with cold tap water, place wax melt, centimeters from first plant. I'm not even sure what wax candle I'm using, and is it a brand new wax candle, wax melt? Again, at this point, if I just had your procedure like this, I wouldn't even know where to start. So place wax melt. Second plant from wax melt. Are these plants in a line, or are they in a circle around it? It doesn't matter where they are in relation. This is where you probably need to create a diagram and set it up here to really show us this is what you mean here. Place wax cube onto wax melt. This I have no idea. I'm not a candle person. You've really got to elaborate more on this setup. You've got to start, but again, please make sure you elaborate. And I would definitely create some kind of a diagram with this. Okay, so experiment. Measure the height of the plant on Sunday. Does it have to be Sunday? Can it be Monday or Tuesday? Is it really the day of the week that matters, or the time since exposure? So please rephrase this. That is not really, unless you really think the plant cares what day of the week it is. At 1,000 hours, turn the wax melt on, spray the soil with water. That's quite a long time, by the way. 1,000 hours, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that like, give me a second here. So 1,000 hours, that's actually over 40 days, and 2,000 hours is almost, I think, 83 days. So this is going to require months just to do these last trials. I mean, is that really something you're going to be using with this? Again, that's kind of a procedure. I'm not sure that's even going to be feasible here. But again, why 1,000 hours? Why did you pick these arbitrary numbers here? In your background research, did you learn that plants grow or metabolize differently at a certain pace? This is something you're just going to have to elaborate a little more on, because right here I'm not really seeing a lot that justifies those numbers you threw in there. Repeat daily. You're using hour. Okay, I'm actually wondering if you mean 1,000 hours, meaning like 10 o'clock in the morning, and you're using military time. Yeah, that's where you've got to be clear, because that again is a hole in your procedure, big hole there. I read that and I guess I'm not even sure what you mean right there by this. Okay. Yeah, I would just say in general, you've got a lot you want to clean up with this procedure right there. As far as measuring the plant, on Saturday, clean the wax worm, place a new wax melt scent, repeat weekly, conclude. Nowhere in there does it say how I specifically measure, because you say measure the height of the plant. Well, at this point, how high were the plants to begin with? Does it matter what stage of development the plants were? What about measuring the plants afterward? It doesn't say anything about measuring them after they're done. So yeah, you've got a lot to conclude. Also, you got a data table, but it then starts on the next page. You want to keep this all on the same page here, please. Next thing I want to comment on, when I look at I like that you started a works cited, that's good. When I look at your table, it'd be nice if you put some kind of a title above this table here, just so we know what we're looking at. But in general, I should be able to pick up on this from your headings. So let's see. You've got the distance from the wax melt, and you put your unit. That's a lowercase c there. It should be cm. That's good, and therefore you do not need, and you should not have the units after every single number there. So just put 5, 35, and 65. Also, I do have to wonder here, again, why these centimeters? Why were these units picked out? In your background research, give us some justification as to why you picked, 5 to start and 65 as your ending. Also, you've got 5 trials, which in itself is not bad, but for only having 3 increments, you really should have 2 extra rows with distance. That, or you focus on doing more trials so you can do a t-test or something like that. Okay? It really just depends. But again, it really boils down to you've only got 15 sets of data here for something like this. Okay? I like that you have mean and standard deviation. You have the amount of growth, and again, be a little more specific by what you mean by growth. I think you mean the change in height. Do you mean the total height or the change in height from its initial height? None of this gives you the ability to record, because here you said measure the height on Sunday, and I'm assuming you're going to measure it later, but you really don't say that. But don't you want to have an initial Sunday height and a final height? None of that is recorded, so you are definitely going to want to clean this up a little bit more, please. If you need any help, please let me know, but there's quite a bit to work on with this yet. Okay, this next one, how does temperature affect the speed at which spinach affect the speed of, whoops, hang on a second here. My apologies, that was my children's school calling regarding something that was changing. How does temperature affect the speed of which spinach seeds begin to sprout? I really like that. You're doing a germination lab, I see. Temperature affect the speed at which spinach seeds begin to sprout. I like it. It's clear. I know exactly what you're doing. That is a good research question. You might want to put as a heading up here, and you probably should have headings to begin with. Research question. Here's your background research. Put a heading right here, background research or investigation. Lab is intriguing to me because I love gardening and dealing with plants. Garden, this is beautiful. You're talking about its relevance here, beneficial to yourself. Very good. What about germination here? I think you're talking about you're using it, but hopefully somewhere in here you're going to talk about germination being a major factor. You're talking about temperature affecting plants. This is beautiful, tying it together. Okay, and I'm going to guess here you threw in some citations there, but the key is, looks like that is the end of your background. This is why you want to make sure you have headings in there. Overall, you have a start. You could probably dig in a little bit more. You started off talking about how this can make the world a better thing. Specifically, and again, I am multitasking here, so if I missed it, but what about germination in itself? Why is this relevant to plant growth in an early stage? Perhaps it would allow you to plant the seeds earlier, therefore it would ensure that more seeds were viable and you wouldn't have to wait and see which ones grow. Little things like this. What about the biology behind germination? What do plants need to germinate? What is the process of germination? Show us what you know and what you've learned. We are actually covering that in our unit of topic 9, but you can start reading about it in your textbook or download my notes at any time if you want to learn about seed germination. It is topic 9.3. Yes, it is 9.3, I believe. You've got to start there, but definitely could get some more background. If there's any ethical considerations or other things to consider too, but otherwise you've got to start. Looks pretty good. Hypothesis: if the seeds are placed in warm but not hot area, they begin to sprout faster. That's pretty good. You might be able to rephrase it by seeds that are in warmer temperatures do better. However, at a certain point they will reach a maximum at which they will not grow faster and they may actually degrade. But either way, it's a start. I think because humans do better in mid-ranges. We all have a balancing range. Frost, okay, very nice explanation. Again, tie it into biology if you can, but it is a good start. All right, so far so good. Independent variable, the temperature of the seeds, where the seeds are placed. This is good. I like that you have centimeters. And I'm curious about your increments of temperature. If I go down to your table, looks like here you're using these increments of temperature. This is what you want to put here for your independent variable. Whoops, lost where I'm at here. This is why it'd be nice if you put a bold heading right there so we can scroll to it quickly. Otherwise, I would put those increments that are on your table right after there. The amount of days it takes for the seed to sprout. I like that. So you're basically counting the number of days. All right, beautiful. That's what we need to see on your table and your graph. As the temperature can fluctuate, temperatures will be between plus or minus 3 degrees. In a similar vein, may not be exactly a day. Okay, close enough, within an hour. Thank you very much. And this here actually is really good. I would try to stick it in here if I can. Like plus or minus 3 degrees would be fine. So plus or minus 3 degrees Celsius is your temperature increment. Plus or minus, well, figure it. You do the math for an hour and try to make it pretty darn close as whatever you can there. Again, you're probably going to want to space this out for constants. Also, please put this in a list so it's not all in a paragraph like this, but I love that you put these in italics with your description afterwards, but please make this in a list format so it stands out a lot more here. And again, this should be in your procedure as well. Materials so far look pretty good. Okay, materials are unique. And it looks like to me that I was looking for the procedure section, and it looks like this is the procedure, but again, I didn't see that because you don't have a heading to your section there. So again, make sure you put a heading for that. So let's see what you have here. By the way, for a procedure like this, you're probably going to want to have a setup section, how to set everything up, the process of germination, and then a separate section on recording data, or like how to take the seeds and record their measurement or something. Just putting it all together, it does impact your ability to communicate. Also, if you put diagrams up showing how you're going to do all this, pictures, anything, really aids in your communication. So you say fill 25 cups of 30 milligrams of potting soil. 30 milligrams is extremely small, by the way. Maybe you mean milliliters, but even that's pretty darn small. So experiment with this number here. How are you measuring the soil? You don't even have to necessarily give an exact measurement. You could just say with exactly halfway full of soil. That's pretty consistent, at least. Pack down until level. A little inconsistent because when you say pack down, well, how much force are we using here? Again, these are just kind of vague. You want to be careful with. About 1.5 centimeter high. Okay, so at this point, you're saying how much soil and how high we want it. But couldn't we just pour the soil in there and then leave it this high to begin with? And then you wouldn't have to worry about people compressing it at different force levels or something. Again, just something to kind of think about with your procedure, because it does leave room for variation with how people do this. Place one seed in the center of each cup. This is good, but you could probably get more efficiency and do more than just one seed. You could probably put like 4 seeds or more, but as long as you have them equally apart from each other and from the edges of the cup, you should be completely fine. Cover the seed loosely with, again, we're getting into the measurement of the soil there. Do not pack down, gently leave. I like this. This is fine. You could simply just say take a certain amount, or like take another half a cup and pour it on top or something, or a quarter of a cup. It doesn't matter. When I say a cup, I mean not like imperial unit, like tablespoons and that. I mean like the actual cups that you're using here. By the way, I assume you're using Diamond brand condiment cups. How big are these cups? Are they like a certain amount of fluid ounces or milliliters? I don't know how big these cups are. I just have the brand, but I'm pretty sure that that they have a measurement on the side. You're going to have to investigate there. Okay, place the 5 seeds in each temperature level. Make sure to place them nearby so the temperature. Very good. I like that you're saying keep them all by. Temperature zone 1 through 5 for data purposes. Okay, again, show us a diagram or something to illustrate how you are setting these different sections up here. into the center of uncup every 2 days, okay? And I noticed you said every 2 days here, so where did you get this idea? Why not every day? Why not every week? Somewhere in your background, you probably should have investigated something on how often should I water my plant, and this is the perfect place to do it. Check cups every day at 3:15. Why 3:15? Why not 3 o'clock? Why not 4 o'clock? I'm sure you have a reason, probably because school gets out. But again, that because it's so abstract there and we want to make this replicable, just make sure you're specific with that. Upon seeing a sprout, note down the number of cup date began sprouting. So clearly the distance it is from the soil matters. Okay, clearly the distance, the seed is buried really can affect the outcome of your experiment. All right. Well, I guess I see how you're measuring it, so it is the number of days. All right, let's go to your table. Be a pretty good idea if you highlighted these headings here, just to kind of make them stand out a little more, but otherwise, it's not too bad. Your independent variable is not labeled at all. You need to have this in like the temperature of the environment or whatnot. And also, I am curious how you got these specific variations in temperature. In your procedure, I didn't recall where it said you were creating these different environmental conditions. So something to think about here with how you're going to do this. And I'm not going to lie, this is kind of tricky, especially when you don't have an incubator. So you might have to get a little creative. You might notice that your garage is not as cold as outside, and so you left the seeds in. Maybe you could have a thermometer in the garage and record the temperature average or something. I don't know. Maybe you could put some in the refrigerator, some outside, some upstairs, and you notice, it doesn't have to be an even increment. It would be ideal, but as long as they are in different places at different temperatures, you can establish that temperature does play a role in germination. Also, 23 degrees is not really all that hot. Let's see if we can make it even hotter. Is there a place you can put it in your house where it's even warmer? Or is there a place you can even create the conditions to make it warmer? Again, these are just things for you to think about here. I don't know if there's a warming pad or a warming and again, the person I am speaking to, for all practical purposes with this lab, if you do not have access to all this, that's understandable, but at least for your write-up, talk about using like reptile pads or anything that could possibly keep it a consistent warmer or colder temperature. But you've got to think of some way in your procedure, how could a student set up a lab like this? You've got a good number of trials and you have a mean and a standard deviation. This looks pretty decent here, okay? So you've got some things to work with this, but you've got a good start. Okay, the effect this lab we're going to do is the effect of color temperature on the time taken to enter REM sleep. I think you and I have talked about this. This lab is going to be hard to do, but it can be done. Let's just see what it is. So the color temperature, the effect of color temperature on the time taken to enter REM. Okay, so the time taken to enter REM sleep. I get this is easily defined. I understand you're saying once you've entered REM, then you've measured it. Already what I have spoken with regarding this is it is going to be hard to measure without accurate measurements or you actually staring at somebody's eyes when they've entered REM mode. It's going to have a lot of variability in it, but as long as you can define that in your procedure. It's the color temperature. You and I have talked about this. You're talking about the color of light kind of a thing. We've got to find a way to rephrase this here. Definitely talk about the color of light or something here. Rephrase it, or maybe put temperature in Kelvin or something in parentheses. Some way to talk about color of light in parentheses, temperature in degrees Kelvin. That would be much more standoutish. Oh, this person is referring to color in terms of the temperature of the light. Okay, but again, by itself, again, you're trying to convince a moderator that lives in a foreign country what this means, and I just wanted to make it as easy and clear as possible. Okay, all right. What is the effect of the light color? Okay, so here it's a little bit different. Try to tie these in together on the time taken in. Okay, very similar. Background information. I notice all your text here is bold. You probably don't want to do that, but your headings should be bold. That helps it stand out. So, but definitely don't make your text all bold. With the rise in popularity of TikTok room lights, many people, I've seen those, by the way. My wife makes me watch all those, so I know what you mean. And thank you for abbreviating TikTok or putting it in quotations or some way to note that this is actually a brand. Again, remember, moderators live often in foreign countries and they may not be as familiar with stuff that you write about, and so doing that helps out. Many people have these lights on for long periods of time. 24/7, I think you mean 24 hours a day. I would write it as 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, you're not competing with me, but a moderator. When they sleep. Although I do not have these lights, I do have a diffuser. It changes colors. I notice I feel drowsiness. Okay, so here's an observation, first step in the scientific method, and you are now questioning it. This is good, very good. Definitely elaborate on this. You've got a very good start there, because the studies have shown the effects of cell phones. Definitely focus on these studies, because you are right, there are studies on this here. I noticed you put citation like you're trying to have a skeleton to fill in later. That is good. Definitely elaborate on that. I started to wonder if having these light colors could affect your circadian rhythm in time to initiate REM sleep. Now you're talking about REM sleep. You might want to make a different paragraph. Just talk about REM sleep here. Talk about the impact of REM sleep, smartphones, its environment, everything around us. Okay, so this is very good. You're definitely going to want to break these into paragraphs. And I love how you're setting this up, by the way. This is very good. You've established why you've had these observations, how you've felt certain ways yourself, and you're now asking questions. Now you're digging into REM sleep. I noticed you mentioned circadian rhythm, so talk about how REM is valuable to us. Dig deeper into what is REM. Maybe have a graph that shows the REM cycle. I believe it's every hour and a half or something people typically enter. By the way, for this, you may want to compare your results to actual studies and see how yours compare. But otherwise, dig deeper into REM mode, have diagrams, whatever it is to establish you know and you have done your research. Okay? Now, as we end this here, you say, through conducting the experiment, I hope to find answers and inquire further to the extent and implications. This experiment will have impact knowledge and we're given consent forms. Okay, elaborate more that you are considering the ethical considerations here, because the moderators really want to see that, but otherwise this is good. And you hope to find answers. And I assume you're tying this into how this helps out society, so just make sure you're elaborating on that. But otherwise, I would break this up into sections. You've got a very good skeleton. Just find ways to elaborate and dig a little deeper there, okay? Also, how are you measuring this REM sleep here? At this point, I don't know. I'm going to have to look in your procedure, but surely you've done some background on how a student in their room or whatever they're going to do is going to measure the sleep cycle. Okay, so somewhere to talk about that. I love that you created a null hypothesis here, and null should probably go ahead first. You might even want to explain the null hypothesis up here too, just so we can see, but I love that you've established this. Color temperature will not have an effect. Okay, color temperature will have an effect, and you're establishing why here, okay? You could probably put this explanation afterwards, but again, I would put the null hypothesis first because that is your default position. Otherwise, it is very good. Okay, color temperature in degrees Kelvin, this is good. And are you using what units are we using? So if we go to your graph, I notice you have a table here, and I'll probably have to go to the Google Docs. Actually, I guess I'll go to the Google Docs real quick. And it looks like I can't go to the Google Docs because I don't have access to it. So you're going to have a way to have this posted, and you're not a link in here, obviously. But on your table, that's what should be. You should have those units. What color temperatures are you using? Your dependent, you just have a V there. Dependent variable, the length of time to enter the first REM cycle of sleep. You are measuring this in minutes. Okay, that's good. And that is your unit, the first REM cycle of sleep. So sounds like how long it takes them to fall asleep in general and start REM, rather than timing REM cycles between it. Okay, I can go with that. Then it's less creepy, I suppose, because you're not spending the whole night with them staring at them. Identification of constants. You're going to have, okay, you've got your list started here, but how are you going to maintain these? Again, please refer to that manual I posted, the IA manual on how do you write this up. You should write same amount of sleep and then write all participants will receive X number of hours of sleep. Time between eating and sleeping. All participants will have 8 hours between eating and when they go to bed. I don't know. Just something to make up there. What about the same type of pillow and the same amount? That could probably be tied together. This one definitely needs to be elaborated on out of all of them so far. So really hit on this as you develop your procedure. Material list. You're going to measure the color temperature. This is good. A lot of people just buy the light bulb, but measuring it here, I mean, that works. Ruler, Sleepbot app. Oh, okay, we talked about this. Maybe you want to put that that trademark logo above there, or some way to italicize this just so people can know this is a brand name. And again, not quite sure. I noticed you put 12 inches, which is an imperial unit, but if that is the standard size, that is completely fine. I like that you threw in a consent form there, and again, I think you talked about that in your background. So look at your procedure. Clearly your procedure needs to be elaborated on. In fact, for something like this, you probably want to have a initial, and then conducting the experiment, and then after the experiment section. Like, what are the participants doing before the experiment? How are you actually conducting the experiment? And then what are they doing after? Instead, it's just kind of all thrown together here. So that would help your communication. Have the participants find the middle point in your bed. Then using a tape measure, go straight up the wall. And again, you're using inches here. This is not an appropriate unit. Please use a metric unit. Apply 6 inches of the light horizontal 6 inches. Okay, so you are using the same position of the light, it sounds like, from over the person. That's good. I like that you're considering that. I definitely think here's where you're probably going to want to create a diagram and throw it in there. Like, show us what it looks like in the room, how the setup is, take a picture, or if you want to draw it out and throw it in there, but have some type of a visual description for us as well. Have the participants turn off all lights and shut curtains and blinds in their room. Okay. I'm not sure why that number 2 is there, something to think about. And these should also be numbered, not alphabetized, just kind of something to consider there too. Turn off the LED lights and set them to their prescribed temperature. Just a formatting issue. LED is not capitalized here, but I notice it's capitalized in other places. Usually it is capitalized too, so just try to be consistent with that. But to the prescribed temperature, measure the temperature of the light. These can probably be combined, but okay, got it. So far you've got where to put the lights and how to get the lights turned on. Okay, and now we're almost done with your procedure. Have the participants turn their phone. Why does it have to be in airplane mode, by the way? And this is kind of something you should italicize because it is something specific. But why are they putting their phone in airplane mode? I think I know you're saying this because you don't want their phone to go off and wake them up. But again, why? You're not just talking to me with your IA, you're talking to a moderator who doesn't know you and might live in a foreign country. Make this easy on them to understand your lab report, please. Get into bed and turn your Sleepbot app on. Okay, again, you're using a brand name here, so try to be consistent with this up there. Turn the Sleepbot. How does the Sleepbot app work? At this point, I know nothing about this Sleepbot app and how it works and how it's measuring. This is stuff in your background you've got to elaborate on as well. Place the phone 6 inches, again, avoid inches, away from your body on the bed and rest. Okay. Now, I noticed earlier you were talking about what they were doing ahead of time, but nowhere in this procedure does it say what these participants are doing ahead of time, how you selected the participants, what was your selection for them. This procedure has a lot of development it's going to need. And the biggest thing of all right now, I feel like we've talked about this, about the Sleepbot, but I really don't know, nor am I at this point convinced how well the Sleepbot app works. And so you're going to need to talk about this in a whole separate paragraph in the background research about your choice in using the Sleepbot app instead of staring at their eyes or something like that. So please make sure you are really elaborating more. The procedure has a lot of holes in it at this point. Data table. This is my heading here, so okay, make sure you take that off in your actual, and I notice you have the table here, but again, I cannot see the table. I'm not sure what this is. I'm assuming you wrote this all out by hand, but again, I have no idea what all this is down here. So it looks like you've got some more to fix and elaborate on. Make sure you take the time to get this all complete here, okay? If you need any help, let me know.